Hey, welcome back to the channel. So imagine you've just bought a house, you got a brand new swimming pool, and you want to go swimming. You get everything set up, you flip that switch for the first time, and water everywhere. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to fix PVC pool plumbing so you can enjoy that beautiful investment you got sitting in your backyard. Let's get into it. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to show you guys what I've been working with here. All right, so I'm getting my pool ready to go for the season, and this is what I stumbled upon here. So I guess when this was winterized at the end of last season, I must have had a little bit of moisture in here. What it did is it cracked this bypass system. So what this does is this entire system, it bypasses my heater over here, okay? And it allows me just to block it out of the system. So usually at the beginning of the season, what I like to do is I like to bypass the heater because you're running a lot of chemicals and whatnot, and your water's not balanced. That's not super great for your heater. So the entire point of having this bypass in place here is to be able to lock out the heater, but still keep the system running. With this broken here, we're not going to be able to do that. So the very first thing that I'm going to do, I want to mark the flow of water from my pipes here, okay? So I'm going to grab a Sharpie. Let's get that done first. All right, so this one here, I'm just going to mark with an arrow this way, heater, and this one is going to be the water that's running back to the pool. So let's start off by doing that here. Awesome. Okay, so now that we've got that done, the next thing we're gonna have to do, we gotta cut these pipes, okay? Now, when we cut PVC, you can use a hacksaw, you can use a coping saw, you can use a miter saw, you can use a reciprocating saw. You think you get the point here. I've got a miter saw, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna make my cuts in these pipes here to get this section out of here. Important thing to remember, when you're gonna make these cuts, you wanna try to make them straight, take your time, okay? And you got to leave yourself enough material, because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to use some couplings to reattach this, okay? Now, another thing that we may have noticed here is that I've got a chlorinator on this side of the bypass. And that chlorinator comes right off my heater, and there's a little backflow valve there. What I actually want to do is I want to move that chlorinator onto the other side of the system here, so that by doing that, again, with spring startup, I can bypass the heater altogether, but I also know I've got my chlorinator doing the work in line too. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove that as well, and we're going to get everything moved over here onto this side, all right? Let me go ahead and just give you a bit of a mock-up of what I'm thinking here. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started here by just showing you kind of what my plan is here. So all these little pieces that you see over here, this is what's gonna make the new bypass. Now, of course, it's the beginning of the season. Good luck finding valves and parts and things like that. I try to stock a lot of this stuff myself here at home, just in case I have an emergency. I know I'm gonna have what I need to make my repairs with. So for instance, this one here is actually a 2-inch valve. All my plumbing's 1.5 inches, but I got some reducers in there as well. So this is kind of what the bypass is gonna look like, this section here, but then I've got some additional couplers that I have, because remember, I gotta try to move that chlorinator over, all right? So again, this is kind of our rough game plan here. Okay, time to start cutting. So I've got an old miter saw here. This is what I'm gonna use to make my cuts with. Now, I think I'm gonna start in the most awkward place first, which is gonna be right here on this side of the cedar, okay? So remember, I gotta leave myself, well actually on this side I really don't have to leave myself much room at all, because this is all busted, okay? One thing you're gonna notice here is when you look at how this bypass was put together, there's no gaps in between any of the couplers or the joints. Now, when you're assembling this thing, you might think, hey, that looks pretty good, that's slick. But the problem is when you're set up like this, if you have a problem where one of these valves breaks, well, guess what? You've got to scrap everything. These ball valves, depending whereabouts you are, they can be super expensive. Cost on one of these for me here is anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks, okay? That's $60 to $90 literally sitting right here that now I've got to scrap. The other two valves, they appear like they're in pretty good shape. I probably could have ended up reusing these. So just something to keep in mind. When we put the new one together, we're going to make sure we've got some spaces in between so we can account for this. All right, so I'm going to awkwardly try cutting this one off with my left hand, and let's see what happens. Now my secret is when I cut with these, I like to pull back on the saw first to get myself a groove, and then I can start cutting. There we go. One's free. Let's get the second one here. Okay, those two are free. Now, same thing on this side here. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna make our cuts on this side. All right, so same thing, I wanna try to make these about relatively equal here. All right, here we go. There we go. All right, last one. Again, trying to keep these about relatively equal here. There we go. All right, success. Okay, so just to give you a really good look at what I'm talking about here. Yeah, you can see how nasty these cracks are in here. And this is what was gonna cause all of our issues here. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's get the skimmer cut out. Skimmer, the chlorinator. Let's get that guy cut out because we're gonna have to move him over as well. All right, we're almost there. Okay, and you notice I mark in several places the directions that all this stuff flows. Just want to make sure I'm keeping things square. Okay, now, something worth mentioning on this side of the chlorinator here. Now is where measurements make a really big difference. I don't have a heck of a lot of space here. I only have about 2 inches, which is fine, but this means I have to be very accurate when I cut this because I gotta leave enough material to be able to bond a couple or two. Now, like I was saying before though, because there's only 2 inches there, I get to fix this once, okay? If this doesn't work and I have a problem, I'm gonna have to probably replace this whole section of pool pipe, okay? So we wanna try to keep it as close to accurate as we can. Actually, what I'm gonna do here first is on this side of the pool pipe, or rather this side of my chlorinator, I'm gonna trim this pipe here, and just like we were saying before, I wanna leave a section here so that I know I got room for a coupler, but also if I'm ever experiencing any issues down the road, I know I can do a repair if I have to. So I'm probably gonna give this, I'm gonna eyeball it maybe 3.5, 4 inches here. So let's cut this piece of pipe here first. Again, giving myself a nice little buffer here. Awesome, okay. So this piece of pipe that we just freed, we're gonna reuse it up here, again, just to help kind of close up this distance here. I do have some spare pipe, and that's the thing I'm gonna recommend. If you're a pool owner, make sure you've got a spare section of PVC pipe at home. You never know when it's gonna come in handy, okay? So, let's go get this other piece off here. Now actually, what I'm gonna do for this section, I gotta be accurate. I'm gonna go ahead and measure. I've got a hair over 2 inches here. So I'm going to measure right about here. Okay. Where I put that Sharpie mark, that's where I need to make my connection here. Okay, so again, I kind of brace with my thumb. I put that in place here first, and that allows me to try to stay relatively accurate. Yeah, there we go. All right, now we got the skimmer free. Excellent. Ew. Probably a good time to clean this out too. Okay, so in a perfect world, guys, we're gonna have the skimmer living like somewhere in about over here, and then we're gonna have the bypass after that. That's the dream. Let's see if we can make it happen. Okay, let's go ahead and start building the bypass. So the first thing we're gonna do is I gotta take this big honking 2-inch valve and I gotta adapt this guy down to 1.5 inches. That's where these little reducers come into play, okay? So in order to actually glue all this stuff together, we're gonna be using PVC cement, okay? This stuff is like magic. What it's gonna do is it's actually gonna chemically weld all these pieces together, okay? So just to show you guys exactly what we're gonna do here, okay? I've shaken this up ahead of time, but what I've done is you can see it's kind of got this little applicator ball and you can see the stuff's a bit gooey here, okay? What I'm gonna do is I take the part, okay? I'm gonna take some of this, I'm gonna liberally apply it to the outside coating here. You can take that nice layer on the outside, okay? I'm just gonna place this down for a second. I'm gonna do the same thing on the inside of the ball valve here, okay? All right. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this part. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna push and twist. As soon as I get it lined up, push it and twist it in and drop it as far as it'll go, okay? Now when you see it in here like this, now it's set. When you push this stuff together, guys, I'm not kidding, you got like maybe 2 seconds tops to adjust it or get it in place. Okay, so now I've got this side adapted to the right diameter. Gonna do the same thing on the next side here. Okay, just to give you a good look at exactly what I'm talking about here. Just like that, and boom, in it goes. Excellent, okay. So now we're sealed. Now we got our adapters in. Now we're at 1.5 inches. Now what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna just cut some probably about 4-inch pieces of PVC pipe. And these are gonna act as my couplers to put this whole thing together. All right, let's do it. Okay, so just to show you guys real quick here, this is what it looks like now. Now what I've done is I just dry fit these pieces here, okay? Now the intent behind me dry fitting these pieces here is I want to get this thing relatively straight and level so that when we connect into the rest of the plumbing, we know we're going to be okay. So I'm going to leave one side in, I'll glue one corner of these T's together, and then I think we're ready to get onto the other side here. We're getting there. Okay, so perfect example here. Here's the old bypass. Here is the new bypass. Okay, so you can see now we're definitely sitting a little bit wider than we used to. But with these additional spaces here, if I do have a failure on any of these points, I know I'm gonna be okay. Awesome, so what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna give this a few minutes to cure, and then we're gonna go ahead and start reassembling back here. But first, we've gotta get that chlorinator situation figured out. So, I'll meet you back there. Okay, so just to give you an update on where we're at here, this is the new bypass that we've got installed here now. So hopefully this is going to solve a lot of our problems. So basically we replumbed this whole section in here. I installed a piece of flex pipe to go this way, reconnected my flow back up over here, and now we just got to get the chlorinator plumbed in over here. So we're just about there. Okay, so we basically rebuilt 2/3 of my plumbing system here, but we're almost there. All we got to do is get this last section of pipe plumbed in over here, guys, and we're ready to rock. Let's get it done. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is when we install these couplers or you bind any of these parts, you want to do your best to make sure you've got everything nice and clean, okay? I tried to wipe things down before I did the video, but you may have saw even in just the time lapse, me taking a rag and a cloth and some water and just getting these good and clean. You want to make sure the parts are good and dry before you bind them together, okay? So again, just something to be mindful of. Okay, so this is gonna leave my final section of pipe here that we gotta get measured up. Remember, measure like 6 times and then just cut once, okay? I went a little generous the first cut. I'm just gonna trim this one down a couple more times here just to make sure I got it right where I need to have it, because this is gonna be a tight fit getting that last section to all come together. All right, let's get this insane bend welded first, and then let's get this section taken care of here. All right, so close to being done, which is good because I'm running out of just about everything here. Okay, we're just gonna give that a little time to cure, then we can make that last connection here. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Oh, here we go. So much better. All right, folks, we got everything plumbed back in. We got the bypass done, got the chlorinator in. So if you found the video helpful, please consider giving me a like, subscribing to the channel. If you hit the bell notification, in about a week when I fire up this whole system, you can see the first video of everything that's leaking, because I either didn't use enough glue, didn't clean my joints properly, or put too much torque on everything when I put it back together. All joking aside, folks, thank you so much for your support. See you in the next video. Bye for now.